putting in your names and where you're from, which is awesome, in the chat. And we're just going to give a few more minutes, start a couple minutes after 8 so that we can get everybody on. All right, everyone, we're going to get started shortly in this last minute as we let a few more people in. I think we all kind of know the drill now with Zoom, but just quickly, the chat function is going to be useful to you to, first of all, say hi, where you're from, and then to add any questions or comments that you have throughout our program tonight. You can also keep your eye on the chat for special links or other information that we put in there for you as we move along. I do ask that everyone, remind everyone to stay muted during the presentations so that we can keep the background noise down. And just a little tip, you can change your view in Zoom so that you can see just the speaker. I will be spotlighting our main speakers, but in case you want to do that, or you can have a gallery view and see rows and rows of over 50 people that we have with us tonight. All right, so we got that out of the way. So we'll get started now officially. My name is Wendy Fradlin, and I am the Communications and Membership Director at Together Women Rise. And I am very pleased to welcome everyone here tonight and wish you all a very happy new year. This program that we hold monthly on the first Thursday of every month is for our members and supporters all across the country and really around the world. It's also for people who might be new to Together Women Rise. But before I address any of our new people, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our members and supporters who are here on the webinar tonight. It truly is a happy new year for us at Together Women Rise because of your support for our mission last year, and in particular, our year-end annual appeal campaign. We are still very busy processing donations, checks, and credit card donations that came in over the holiday period. But I can tell you right now that we have blown away our goal for the annual appeal last year. Our goal was $400,000, and we have raised well over $500,000 as of today. So I just have to start that off with that real positive news. It is a happy new year here. And we will be able to continue to do amazing work like you're going to learn about tonight. Now, turning to the people who may be new to Together Women Rise, let me just share a little bit. We are a community of women and allies who are dedicated to the achievement of global gender equality. We have over 400 chapters all across the US and grantee partners around the world in low-income countries all around the world. Our members in chapters across the country and in events like tonight learn about the challenges facing women and girls around the world. And not only that, but they learn about the solutions, the strong, resilient women who are finding innovative solutions to the challenges they face. We give out grants like the featured grant that you'll learn about tonight to grassroots organizations in low-income countries. And we build a very strong community of women and allies here and around the world who care about the same thing and who want to build meaningful connections with each other. So after tonight, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, if you've been inspired, been impressed, we would love to have you join us. There are so many different ways. You can certainly find or start your own local chapter, but you don't have to join a chapter to be part of Together Women Rise. Take part in our advocacy efforts, our book club discussions, our travel. We have trips taking place this year and next year around the world. This is one of those opportunities for you to connect with our community once a month, as I say, first Thursday of every month. And we have different guest speakers every month and talk about the project that we are featuring. Because every single month, there will be a different project that addresses one of the many challenges facing women and girls in low-income countries. We award these projects with a featured grant of between $35,000 and $50,000. And together, all of us in our local chapters on this webinar, through the materials on our website, we learn about the country, the people, the customs, the challenges women face, and how this project is going to support gender equality. So this month, January, we are partnering with an organization called Malaika, which works in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or the DRC for short. Now, some of you who maybe haven't seen some recent communications that came out in the last month or so may recall that originally we selected an organization in Afghanistan to award a grant in January. It is called Afghanistan Lead, and unfortunately, Afghanistan Lead ceased their operations in Afghanistan and withdrew all of their work from that country due to the ongoing security concerns in Afghanistan. So they were unable to accept our grant. Fortunately, when we do, first of all, very disappointing for us and the Afghanistan League and the women and girls in Afghanistan. But fortunately, we do, when we select our grants, we do select some alternates, and sort of like the, a pageant where you have the runner-up in the event that, well, Malaika, our featured grant that has stepped in as our alternate, really stepped up to the plate. They were notified in December, and they came together and provided us with a video and all of these education materials that you all will have access to this month, and did it in a record amount of time. So we're very, very grateful to them. And we are, funding a very, very important project. Women in the DRC are routinely excluded from education and from formal work opportunities. So this creates a dependency, and it also makes women more vulnerable to sexual violence, human trafficking, exploitation, child labor, early pregnancy, and child marriage. We are working with Malaika this month to fund a vocational training program for women in the DRC. Our grant is going to provide instruction in literacy, finance, business development, and family planning, as well as vocational opportunities for women in traditionally male-dominated professions. We have a great guest speaker with us tonight, but before I turn to Megan, we are going to play the wonderful video that they provided to us on such short notice, and then I'll introduce Megan.
Malaika is a non-profit organization empowering girls and the community in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Welcome to this amazing project that we set up in 2007. Next year is the 15 years. Our school is a leadership school. We have from coding, robotics, music, theater, French, mathematics. We built and refurbish many wells, impacting more than 35,000 individuals. We have a community center, we have water sanitation and agriculture.
C'est Maman Flavie. J'ai 50 ans. Je suis ici à la FIFA, c'est maintenant 5e année. Avant de venir ici, j'étais seulement assis à la maison, je ne savais que faire. Quand on a dit qu'il y a un centre là-bas, je suis venu vite pour... D'abord, tulianzaka batu kiloko. Au fur et à mesure, miaka inaendelea tunakuwa batu bamingi tena. Banona vile tu tunatumika, vile tuko tunafunda na banona maendeleo. Ndio watu wengine banakuwa wanaongezeka hapo. Kufuatana na kuona ile maendeleo tunaanza kuendelea très bien. Je suis venu ici pour étudier la couture. On nous a appris beaucoup de choses ici au centre FIFA. Je ne savais pas coudre. Je connais maintenant. Même le français, je ne savais pas. Mais j'ai parlé un peu. J'ai 7 enfants à la maison. Si je connais la couture, je connais coudre, je peux satisfaire mes enfants à la maison. Changement minaona. Maisha nilikuwa nao kule kumulango na hii maisha nisha kupakiza vitu kiloko mkichwa. Shakwa mabadiriko. Shindale na njala. Masomo batoto, je peux facilement.
Je ne faisais rien, je ne contribuais rien, mais quand j'ai appris qu'il y avait une formation au centre Malaika, comme c'était mon rêve d'être couturière, donc savoir comment coudre, c'est ainsi que je me suis trouvée à Malaika, donc au centre communautaire Malaika, pour me faire former de la couture. Quand je suis arrivée à Malaika, j'ai appris à coudre, mais je ne me suis pas arrêtée seulement à coudre. Mais j'ai suivi aussi d'autres formations à Malaika. Il y avait la couture, il y avait le français, l'informatique, la broderie. Grâce à Malaika, je suis ce que je suis. Je n'avais rien dans ma tête. Grâce à Malaika, j'ai quelque chose dans ma tête et qui me fait du bien. Comme je dépendrais trop de mon mari, maintenant pour le moment, je ne dépends plus de mon mari, je suis indépendante. Je cours. J'ai de l'argent, je fais les études de mes enfants, je paye la nourriture à la maison grâce à la fondation.
I want to apologize. I know that some of you were having a problem reading the translation underneath. For some reason, there was kind of a black box covering some of the captions. I apologize for that, and I'll put the link in the chat for you to be able to rewatch the video afterwards or at your convenience. All right, I'm going to turn now to our guest speaker for the evening, Megan Fonts. She is the operations director at Malaika, but she has an interesting background. She has over 18 years of experience in the nonprofit and education sectors. She has been a fierce advocate for underserved young people in Louisiana. I believe you live in New Orleans, right? Yes, she's been working to improve services and significantly reduce the juvenile prison population in Louisiana. And after Hurricane Katrina, Megan led the efforts to reunite young people with their families scattered across the country. And because of this work, co-founded the first standalone juvenile public defender office in the United States. Very impressive. So prior to joining Malaika, Megan worked at the Youth Empowerment Project as the Director of Operations, making sure that all programs and staff had the resources necessary to meet the needs of New Orleans' vulnerable youth. Now, as Operations Director at Malaika, Megan focuses on operations management, fund development, and program support. Her passion for education and social justice make Megan very excited to support the amazing work that Malaika is doing in the DRC. Megan, we're so pleased to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me, and thank you all for funding Malaika for this program. We're really excited about it. As you saw, it's a continuation of a program we started a few years ago that we called Nzori Threads. Nzori means beautiful, and so it was beautiful threads, and now it's beautiful skills. We have been wanting to expand it, and the women had specifically requested certain skills, namely housekeeping and catering, in addition to sewing. And so we've been seeking ways to do that for them. And just as a little bit of background, I know you guys a lot of your work, or all of your work, works around gender inequality all over the world. And that is what Malaika's founding is based on. Girls are the second choice to go to schools in their families. And they don't, if you have to pay to go to school in Congo, and if a family can only afford to send one child, it's almost always going to be the male child that goes to school. Noella had to be raised abroad because when her father died at 5 years old, her mother couldn't afford to send her to school or care for her properly. And when she came back at 18 and saw what her life could have been like, she was determined to start a school for girls. And from that school, we've grown into 24 wells that we've drilled. We have the community center, and we have a small farm that provides fruits and vegetables for our school. And the vocational programs all run out of that center. And what's really interesting is when Malaika started, a lot of the men and the fathers and even the women were resistant to the girls going to school, or women being involved in programs, or girls being involved in sports. And we had probably 20% of the people playing sports at the center were girls. We had a very small enrollment of out of school young people that were girls or women. And today, you know, our school has 400 students. People are eager to get their kids into that school. We have to do a lottery because we don't have enough room for everyone. Women, you know, are eager to join our programs. The men are eager to have their daughters, even their male children as well, but their daughters and their sons join our programs. We've used sports, we've used outreach, we've just used examples. We just, you know, show them what it looks like to have, you know, how good it is to have both men and women, boys and girls working towards the same goals. And this Inzori Skills program that y'all are funding is doing that as well. You've heard about, you saw Mama Flavi and Mama Annie talk, and I know you missed some of the subtitles there, but both of them were just talking about how they weren't doing much at home, and, you know, they didn't have a lot of money, and any work that they did was sort of piecemeal or, you know, catch as catch can. And they both enrolled in the programs at the center, got the skills to sew, but also entrepreneurship skills, and turn those skills around into income for their families. Mama Flavi now sends every single one of her children to school. I believe Mama Ani does too. I think they make enough money. Mama Flavi founded Mama Yamapendo, which is our cooperative at the community center. And it's a cooperative of women sewing. And they sew, we pay them, and they sew things for us. All the girls' uniforms at the school, they sew all of those. They sew bags and even hair scrunchies, because those are back in style now, laptop cases, all kinds of things. And then if we sell them, any profits come back into the center. So Mama Flavi helped found that. And during the pandemic, they sewed thousands of masks that we distributed to everybody in the Kalibuka region. So everybody has these beautiful, I think I actually might have one right in front of me. We sewed these beautiful masks out of traditional waxcloth material. So yeah, so it's sort of a very wraparound approach, our work. We don't just say, like, we're only going to do the community center, we're only going to do the school. You can't do one without the other. Everybody has to be on board, and everybody has to be supportive, and everybody has to be supported. And it truly is a community-driven project, and all of Malaika is. Kalibuka was chosen as the site because of how interested and involved the community was, and they continue to be just hyper involved. We have a parents council at the school, and we have a community council at the community center where folks give input and feedback into the work that we're doing, what they would like to see changed, making sure everything is culturally competent. And a really important thing I like to let people know is I'm speaking here on behalf of Malaika. I am a white American woman, but the only reason I'm speaking is because it's the middle of the night for everybody else. They're all asleep. But all our staff, there's 2 of us in the US, there's one person who helps Noella in the UK, but everybody else is Congolese. Our staff of over 50 is 100%, not 100%, but the staff in Congo is Congolese, and they're all generally from the region that we're working in, because it's the biggest country in Africa. So yeah, we just work really hard to make sure that we are of the community, by the community, and for the community. And this program, we're hoping it continues to change lives. As you saw, 2 of the stories that you saw there, but also the whole video that you saw. The women take what they're learning and don't just keep it for themselves. They spread it out. And and make it impact their whole community. So you saw Mama Flavi, and she's able to send her kids to school. We had Miss Lorian, and she's 28 and a mother of 3. She was living on a very low income, and they were living in Lubumbashi, which is a city close to the village of Kalibuka. They moved there because it was a little bit cheaper, and they also heard about Malaika, so they wanted to access the programs. Lorian enrolled in the sewing program. She used the skills that she learned in entrepreneurship to help her husband open a home-based business. And then when that business started to do well, they bought a sewing machine, and she opened her own business. And she now has her own home-based business. The income has increased. Their kids, more of their children are in school, and they are starting to look at a joint business they can open together and buying a plot of land rather than renting off of people. So it's, you know, it's even creating generational wealth at that point. And then we have Lilian actually another Lorian. She's a mother of 4 children, and she just sat at home and wasn't able to do much because she wasn't educated or anything. She joined the program. They have been able to buy land, build a house, send their kids to school, just from this program. So it really is life-changing. And as Wendy talked about earlier, you know, the consequences of people not having money and having to make hard decisions often result in harm to girls and women. And that includes marrying girls off very young, girls being forced to work at the roadside where they're at risk of sexual assault, where they then get pregnant or then forced to marry or pushed out of their homes, things like that. So these programs are they're not just feel-good programs, they're really life-changing and you know, keep people safe. And we also, in the programs, provide reproductive health education. And it's not as simple as, you know, everybody knows how babies are made, but it also gives people tips on how to prevent pregnancies if, say, your husband's adverse to contraception. You know, so just sort of giving folks like little ways that they can try and delay pregnancies or space their pregnancies the way they want, so they have a little bit more control of their futures in their lives. Yeah, and I think the other thing I just wanted to talk about was I was asked about COVID and how COVID has impacted us. COVID has it's for us as an organization, it's driven down our donations because everybody, you know, people were struggling around the world financially. So for us as an organization, that's the biggest impact we had as a whole organization. We lost 1 staff member in the Congo to COVID. So that was incredibly heartbreaking. And it also closed our programs down when the services went into lockdown. And as a result of that, we keep an eye on everybody. When the girls come to school, if they look a little sick, we notice it. If somebody's not coming to the programs at the center, we notice it and we go out and find them and see what's going on. And we weren't able to do that. And as a result, some people got totally preventable they got diseases, they caught diseases and that could have been cured and passed away. So we lost several of our participants preventively that way. Right at the start of the pandemic, when the government demanded a shutdown, the borders closed and the Congo's already very hard to get food or any items in and out of, and food prices skyrocketed by 500%. And Kalibuka is already very poor and underemployed, and we knew people were going to lose their jobs. And Sarah, our country manager, just said to us, she's like, this is going to get really bad. There's going to be a lot of crime. You know, a lot of people are going to get hurt. And so we just said, what can we do? And we just took all the money that we would normally have been spending on food for the girls and started doing food distributions. So weekly distributions of food to everybody in the area. And we used some food from the farm. We bought a lot of food. We fundraised for it as well. And we distributed food and hygiene products and those masks to everybody. We set up hygiene stations throughout. We used what's called Sports for Social Development to do education programs around COVID prevention. And yeah, so those are sort of the ways that COVID it has impacted us, but how we also responded. The other really cool thing that happened was we have some girls, all the girls are in STEM at our school, but a handful of the older girls learned how to program a 3D printer, and they were allowed to come into school in small groups, and they printed over 10,000 face shields for local hospitals. And distributed those. So that was pretty cool, putting their knowledge to use at a really difficult time. Yeah, so I think that's kind of everything I have. I'm just looking at my notes real quick. Oh, I do have one more thing. The program is expanding with a different grant. It is, we're really excited about this. We're gonna be expanding into electrical and mechanical. And it's going to be, it's not only women, it's men and women. But part of the grant we wrote that we would try and achieve 50-50-50. It's really hard just because women are often excluded and don't have even the base skills to get into some of these trades. But we're doing prerequisite work, and we're going to have a 60-40 split to start and aim for at least 50-50 after 3 years in the program. And everybody that goes through the program will be certified in their trade. From the National Trade Organization. So
that's incredible. If you have any pictures of the girls making those using the 3D printer to make those shields, that would be really great to see. I'd love that. Someone was wondering about whether or not there's been much vaccination in the area.
No, there hasn't been a lot of vaccination. The rates are pretty low. Right now, partially, I think there's a combination of things happening. I think people live, if you saw how the village was, it's not quite as crammed, and people live in more open air, not circulated air. You know, if you go into the city or the markets and stuff, it is crammed and the buses are crammed, but there's just not quite the, big crammed city living that we have across the Congo. And there's also like only 10% of the roads are paved. And so it's just not, it can't spread in quite the same way it can spread in a place, like the US. But people are very hesitant to get the vaccine. Schools were shutting down because parents were refusing to send their kids to school because they heard they were being forced to be vaccinated. So it's a slow campaign.
Is there some particular reason why the entire community doesn't want to be vaccinated, or is there a fear of?
Yeah, I think it's a fear. It's a fear of the unknown. It's like a distrust, that's been sown over years. Also very, very traditional, like tribal values and stuff, things like that. Yeah. I'm not the best person to speak to that, but those are sort of things I gathered from talking to the folks in the village.
Absolutely. Well, we've got quite a few questions here, so I'll jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit more about the community center, when it was built, and did you have special funding for it? Someone was commenting on it seems like quite a nice sized community center, and tell us a little bit about the history of that.
Yeah, of course. So our community center was built in, I always get the year wrong, so I'm just pulling it up so I can make sure I get the right date, in 2013. And it was built in partnership with FIFA, the football, not European, the World Football Association. So, the World Cup and everything. And so actually, I don't know if a lot of people picked up on it, but in the video, Mama Flavi's talking about the community center, and she keeps saying FIFA, 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 because that's what they called it for the longest time, the FIFA center. And so we just put, community center, because that's what we call it now. But when the World Cup was in South Africa, the FIFA decided to build 20 Football for Hope centers across the continent, and Malaika was granted one of those. And then they funded us for the first several years of everything going on there. And it was meant to be both sport and education. So it wasn't, while FIFA funded it, it was for both. And we have a variety of programs there. We have, education. So literacy in French. We have English, civics, math, IT classes, We do some health outreach and basic health education, but not a lot of that. We do outreach into the communities on health, on waterborne diseases, malaria, things like that, and all of those are tied to the community center. And then we have a small farm there as well, where we teach about sustainable agriculture. So the community center does a lot. And then the sports aspect is we both have, it's not professional, but league games for football, soccer. And then we have what's called sports for social development. And that's when you use sports to convey certain messages or education. So like I said earlier, we use that around to teach people about COVID prevention and, signs and symptoms of COVID. But it's also one of the key things that we used around gender equality and to change people's minds there. The games will have one team that has some girls and one team, both teams have girls and boys, everything's co-ed. And one team won't be allowed to play their girls and, show the harm of sort of excluding, the girls from the team. And now we have, I think it's 50-50 participant in girls and boys in sports. Our coach coaches the national women's team. And some of our students from there are play on the local representation of the team.
About how large is the community that you're serving, and about how many people are helped with all your programs?
Yeah, so the community center is about 5,000 people we serve through the education program, sometimes just through one-off events and things like that. The wider community through our 24 wells and outreach and things are over 35,000 people. Mm-hmm. And then there are 400 girls at the school.
And tell me a little bit about the women that are going to be in this vocational training. What's sort of the age range? How many will participate?
Yeah, so we'll have, over the year, we'll have about 200 women in the program. We'll have a couple cohorts of each topic. They specifically requested these trades. They are low barriers to entry for them, and they know that, and they know they can build upon these skills. But they chose these because they're things they can see they can get work right now and lift themselves up and then move on to other things. But they are as young as 18 up to, in their 40s or 50s. We don't put a top age range on it, so long as they can make it to the classes and do the work. But girls and women are married, leave the home or get married pretty young, but we start at 18. So
talk a little bit about, you've been discussing the skills that are being taught, things like sewing, housekeeping, catering, and someone commented in the chat, well, aren't those stereotypical female jobs, but not so in the DRC, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot, women will still be the cooks and things like that. And they are stereotypical, but the DRC isn't quite at the point where even the electrical and mechanical is sort of a big thing for us to try and get women into that program. So while they are stereotypical to us, they're things that these women want to learn and are ways for them to actually get into the workplace, because otherwise they wouldn't even be in the workplace. And so, yeah, they won't be able to work in a restaurant. For example, they'd be cooking and selling on the side of the road rather than in a restaurant or catering an event or, things like that. Men absolutely dominate the workforce there, and you have to have some level of education to get beyond, certain jobs, like working on the roadside or in a market or something.
Right. And then the sewing that the women do, several people were always interested in whether or not they market the products outside of the area, or is it mainly just in that community?
So we are trying to start selling things outside of the area, and we whenever somebody goes to Congo, we have them bring as much back as they can. But it's hard to ship in and out. There's no postal system, and so getting things in and out is hard. So we kind of rely on the Malaika postal system, which is visitors with suitcases. But yeah, we have them marketed. They have their own labels. The Mama Yama Pendo label, and we sell them in a major retailer in Lubumbashi, the city. There's a supermarket it's a supermarket slash like store called Hypersaro. So we sell things there and at a couple other places, and then we do make them available. Like if folks see something and they want it, we try and make those available for sale to folks.
Last question. There are a few others in the chat that maybe you can check out, as we move to the next speaker. But someone is asking about, they understand you partner with other local organizations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we partner. Like we don't partner to do our own work with other organizations. We do some small partnerships, but mainly we partner by sharing, like knowledge sharing. So Elvis is our program and evaluation manager. So he runs the community center. So this program is actually his baby. He's been there since the start of Nzori Threads and has helped it grow. And he also does a lot of trainings. And so he'll go to a school, or he'll go to another community center, or he'll bring, 10 schools to the community center, or and do trainings on them about gender equality, or using sports for social development for certain things. So that's mainly how we partner with other organizations. We have partnered with some health organizations in the past to do like education or outreach, to do our malaria net distribution, things like that. But yeah, we don't have a ton of partnership. There's not a lot. It's not, there's not a ton of nonprofits like there are, say, in Eastern Congo, or even, anywhere else in the world. So.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Megan. If you don't mind staying on and just checking out a few of those other questions in the chat and maybe responding directly, that would be awesome.
Sure thing.
We loved hearing about the wonderful work that you're doing. That truly is a wraparound approach that includes every aspect of life there in that community. And we're thrilled to see how you guys progress with our grant and in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for having me.
So now is the time when typically those of you who are familiar with our webinars, we turn to a second grant that we typically fund in a month, which is our Sustain grant, a longer term 3-year commitment that we make to organizations. However, some new and exciting things are happening, which we announced in early December. And we thought, well, just in case some of you maybe missed that in all of the holiday rush, we'd invite Dr. Veena Kankay, our Director of Grants and Partnerships, to tell you a little bit more about it. As you'll see on the slide, she's going to talk about our new and upcoming transformation partnerships, which are replacing the Sustain grants that we have been giving out for a number of years now, and also replacing other partnership grants, like we just announced a couple of the last 2 impact partnership grants that we will be awarding. So this is a really exciting direction for Together Women Rise, where we're going to be focusing much more on the root causes of global gender equality. And so I think you'll enjoy hearing Veena tell us all about it.
Thank you, Wendy. Happy New Year, everybody. I am delighted to share this wonderful idea that we have approved and we have started working on transformation partnerships for the year 2022. That's why it says fall 2021, because that is when we started and we announced it. So the next slide. I believe all of you will remember that this was in October of 2020 when our board approved our new mission and vision. The mission and vision is very bold, it's very forward thinking, and we reaffirmed our collective power to focus on global gender equality in all that we do, all our activities, our initiatives, and our programs. Next slide. It was also at this time that we committed to doing this through our 3 core strategies, which are community building, learning, and giving. Next slide. So it was in early of 2020. It was in the February of 2020 that we convened the Grants Reimagining Committee. The Grants Reimagining Committee was made up of board members, members of the Grant Selection Committee, and staff, and we convened for almost 20 months. We did a lot of reading, learning, discussion and debate around some really big ideas about grant making. And one big idea that I want to leave all of you with, which is systems change. We also focused on another very, very key issue, and that was the best practices in philanthropy. What exactly were the new movements? Where was the field moving towards? And so we focused on one key issue, and this is participatory grant making. I mean, what are some of the principles and what needs to happen? And we realized that our approach, our decision-making, our communications, all of it needs to reflect this participatory approach of equality between the funder, donor, and the grantee partner. That is, we need to bring more equity into the process. Next slide. So the Grants Reimagining Committee made several key recommendations. The first one is featured grants continue unchanged. I'm going to repeat this because we get lots of questions about this. Featured grants will not change. We will always have 12 featured grantees for all of this year, all of next year. We have applications coming in. I mean, we are doing the work, and so nothing is going to change on the featured grants. But we are looking to approach gender equality in a different way and go deeper into some of the root causes. So what we are more likely to do in transformation partnerships, and we are pursuing this and we will announce it as it happens, is to follow principles of multi-year funding for greater impact and for scale. We are pursuing system change approaches to solving certain problems. We are going to follow a process of participatory grant making, and we are seeking gender equity and gender equality. And I will give you some examples to make this a little bit more clear. Next slide. So you might ask, why should we pursue systems change? Well, everywhere we look, all the systems that we see, the justice system, the political system, the way the work world works, employment works, all these systems are created for men and they benefit men. We know that women and girls live very complex lives, and there is an intersectionality to all the roles that they play in society and all the expectations and obligations that they have to their family and community. We also know that gender inequality and poverty are deeply intertwined, and that poverty alleviation cannot be achieved without addressing gender inequality. And this is enshrined in the Sustainable Development Goals. So the main idea is that we are tackling the root causes of gender inequality. So to advance global gender equality, next slide, please. There are some interventions that we can have. And are we on the next slide? Zenara, there we go. Thank you. So to advance global gender equality, we can make some really important investments. For instance, we can invest in one big idea, and that would be economic equality. Like Megan was saying, a lot of women work in the informal economy, and that can be very exploitative. So how can we change some of that system so that women get paid for the work that they do and they get paid equal to men, at least in that culture? We can also make sure that women are at the decision-making table. We talk about peace building, we talk about conflict resolution. Peace is built in communities. Women can play a very, very major role in all of this. So these are places where we can pursue initiatives that work on this, where women are having a seat at the table. The two other meaningful areas of opportunities are education and ending gender-based violence. So to give you a little bit of an example of gender-based violence and how we can look at systems change, for the months of February and March, we have 2 featured grantees that are approaching the treatment and the trauma recovery of gender-based violence. So in a sense, the featured grantee is dealing with the recovery process. The gender-based violence has already occurred. In the transformation partnerships portion, we can pursue initiatives where we are looking at something which go down into the root causes of gender-based violence. Where does this all begin? Where do these beliefs about power and privilege come? Does it happen in the schooling system? What's in the curriculum? You know, are there some signals in the culture, in the teaching? What exactly are the messages? Can we change belief systems? Can we change how law enforcement reacts to gender-based violence? Do they react to it where they actually believe the woman and the girl who has experienced gender-based violence? You know, so can the justice system be worked at? So we can work at belief systems, culture, lax laws, lack enforcement. That would be a transformation partnership approach to gender-based violence. So those are some of the things that we are looking at. Next slide. So here are some examples of system change. Now, in a number of countries, challenges faced by women and girls are not addressed in current banking, credit, inheritance, and land ownership laws. A country may have a law where a widow can inherit the land that belonged to her husband. But for cultural reasons of a lack of information, it kind of gets spirited away, and she is not aware that she has some of these rights. So at the transformation partnerships level, we can work to make sure that everybody knows what their rights are. Everybody has access to all of this. So these would be some examples of where we work in the inheritance laws, land ownership laws, banking, credit. Megan talked about the STEM fields. So we can work with initiatives that focus on increasing leadership and participation in the STEM fields, in the finance fields, working on women joining corporate boards. So trying to get at the systems change and trying to get at the root causes that creates gender inequality. This is where we are headed. We can also adopt a gender lens to teacher training, curriculum development, issues in schooling. So these are all examples of systems change. Next slide. Now, the process that we would be using in transformation partnerships would be that of participatory grant making. This would be the next slide, Zenetta. So some of the key concepts of participatory grant making involve shared control between the funder and the grantee partner, respecting the partner's knowledge, staying true to these principles. Building these relationships is time consuming. And so this will involve a lot of investment of time, staff and volunteers of Together Women Rise. Next slide. So transformation partnerships will be by invitation only. It will be unlike our featured grants process, which is an application process. We may consider giving a smaller grant to a grantee partner for the planning and setting up of the infrastructure in order to engage in their initiative. We may fund collaboratives, we may fund collectives. So we are keeping an open mind in how we pursue transformation partnerships. This would be large multi-year funding. We expect about 3 to 4 partners a year. And the issues that we would be covering in transformation partnerships will be part of our learning program. So we hope to kind of engage all of you in this very, very new and exciting venture. And I will leave you with this last slide, Zenetta, where we begin with research and outreach. We select partners, we engage in conversations, we decide on some partnerships, they're announced, and then we start the process all over again. So expect this to be long-term, multi-year, larger amounts of funding, and very, very exciting issues. So I'll stop there if you have any questions. And we can stop screen sharing so we can see some of our members. And while the questions are coming in, I'd just like to remind everybody about a few things about the featured grantees. In the year 2020, you remember when the entire world was going down into lockdown, we did change our rules and regulations on our funding. We did allow all our grantee partners, featured grantees and our sustained grantees, to use our grant funding in unrestricted ways. If it meant that they needed to pay the salaries of their staff so that they could exist as an organization to continue their work, we allowed them to do that for the year of 2020. And almost all our grantee partners, what we have noticed, for the most part, 2020, they were able to raise a lot of money to deal with COVID. Remember, Megan was talking about having to have food, creating the masks and all of those kinds of things to kind of immediately deal with issues of COVID. Slowly, all of our grantee partners are now using our funding to do their projects as they've been allowed back into some of the countries and the locations. So it has been an adjustment, and they are deeply, deeply grateful. They write to us and say, thank you a zillion times for us being flexible, for them to allow them to do what they needed to do in order to be, to kind of exist, keep doing their wonderful work. So that is where we are at in terms of our 2020 grantees and 2021. But for the most part, almost everybody is back in their communities and doing their work. Any questions, Wendy?
Yeah, just also a note that we had reduced the grant size, the featured grant size temporarily, but we're back.
Yeah,
we're back.
So 2021, we had reduced the grant sizes because we were all in flux, but now we are back at the 35 to 50,000. Yes. So could you maybe just talk a little bit more? You said that it was going to be a process of invitation to select these partners. How are you actually going to go about finding them and selecting them for the transformation? Mm-hmm. So the transformation partnerships, the 20-month process that I was describing earlier, we have already done a whole lot of research on some organizations, and we are just at the point where we are convening teams who will be working on pursuing specific ideas and calling the partners, having conversations with them and beginning the conversations. So we are just at a very nascent stage. We have done some research and we have some ideas lined up, but we are about to get to work and move this along. And that's all I can say at this point.
I was going to ask you to can't you give us a little sneak peek, but I'm not going to press you on that. But is it this was someone asking, is the current grant selection committee that's doing this work, or are we going to need to have more volunteers?
No, the current grant selection committee is very busy with the featured grants that we already have. And actually we start our meetings next week. So this would be another team of transformation. We're calling it the Transformation Partnerships team. And that would be the team that works on it. There is enough to do for both teams.
Absolutely.
And we are so lucky that we have deeply committed volunteers, some of which I already see amongst all of you.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to push you just a little bit on. Do you have any idea when the first of these grants might be awarded?
The best case scenario would be that we may have 1 or 2 partners to announce in fall. That would be our best case scenario.
Yeah.
And we think that is a very, very likely to happen. But remember that this is an ongoing process, right? You announce partners for 1 year, then you have to keep doing the work for the next year and the next year. And so it's a constant conversation, research, outreach, conversation, research, outreach. And we're just doing this for the first time. So harder to put the timeline and fix the timeline so specifically.
Can you give any examples of organizations, maybe even some of our current grantee or past grantees that are doing this type of transformation work?
So some of you during the featured grants process, as you have gotten acquainted with some of our featured grantees, you must have seen that some of them are already working at the systems change level, where they are trying to influence some of the laws, the way the laws are written in their countries, to change the systems. They are working on curriculum transformations. And so some of them are already doing systems change work, and we are definitely looking at them closely. But some of the more larger scaled projects are being done by larger organizations or collectives. And we are a reasonably small organization with a large reach. So we might have to work with collectives in order to do some really high impact work. And we're definitely looking at those possibilities so that we as a community are part of the process and we're part of the change.
Yeah. Can you give us an idea? I know you talked about there could be smaller type grants at around 25,000 planning grants to kind of get things going, because, it takes time and effort on behalf of these organizations to develop this work we want to do. What might be the size, of other grants that we might give? How much funding will each partner receive? Do you have any idea?
So this would depend on who the transformation partner is, whom we are considering. But we have talked about even one single grant being 150,000, maybe 200. It depends on the project that they are, the initiative, the movement that they are pursuing and working in. So we're not necessarily constrained by that. We do know that every year that we have the capacity to give a certain amount out, what used to be in sustained grants and partnership grants, and we put that money together. At this point, the number we're looking at is about $400,000 that we could give 3 or 4 large grants, which are above 100,000. We also are really looking forward, once we select the grantee partner, to have them talk to all of us and tell us about the work and tell us about the scale. I think it would be wonderful for us to learn about what is going on out there. There is a lot going on. There are a lot of partners who are doing absolute wonderful work. And for us to be on that journey with them would be absolutely wonderful and something for us all to be really, really proud of.
How are these initiatives or movements, as you say, because they are much broader than a specific project that's that we funded in the past. How are you going to evaluate them, or are the goals going to be different? Is it going to be harder to measure?
So as reaching global gender equality, if it was that easy, we would be there already, right? So this is the long haul. This is the long process. This is the hard work that goes into all of this. So the way we would, so the process is more important. Where are we putting the money? What is it going towards? Maybe the outcome has a timeline of 10 years. Maybe it has a timeline of 15 years. So for us to evaluate success would be, what is the process? Where is the investment going? Does it seem sensible to make this investment? What have we seen in other countries happen? So I think the way we look at it and the way we evaluate it is going to be different. And we will always trust our grantee partners because they know best. They would have been partners who would have worked in this field for several years. So it does require some level of patience on our part, that we be part of the process, that we engage effectively, and we do what we can in our capacity to be part of this change, the global shift to something very different and something more positive for women and girls. You can see with our feature grants that we are making a lot of progress in direct services, but we can go on and on doing direct services without changing the systems that create the problems. So we do need to tackle what is happening at the systems level, at the root causes, so that we prevent some of these things from happening. Gender-based violence is a great example. So, how can we change those systems?
Well, and, there's been a couple of comments in the chat about just, the sensitive nature also of going into communities and trying to change age-old customs and traditions and practices and whatnot. But I think maybe, Veena, you could talk about how, that's why we want to work with local partners and have them say what is best, in their community, so that all of that is, respected.
Absolutely. So that kind of respect happens even in our featured grants process. Yes, our policies do dictate that we fund US 501c3s. So what that means often is that there could be an organization, and often is, an organization that is already registered in their country and doing their work. And then they register themselves in the United States for fundraising. When we are doing grant selection in the featured grantee stage, we are looking for that. We are looking to see that organizations are very, very receptive to their beneficiary communities, that they're listening, that the ideas are coming from the women and girls. Megan actually gave us those ideas, and we look for that. We look to see that this is not a top-down approach, but this is a bottom-up approach. And that is how we select our featured grantees. So we are already doing that in the way we kind of fund our partners. We would do the exact same thing. Change doesn't happen so easily and well when it's top down. It really works well when it's bottom up. And we would look for that, and we would seek that. And we would seek successful partners who are doing that work and who can bring about the change. So sometimes these are collectives because several countries may be working on something together to change something in the region. This could be about peace building, conflict resolution, would involve multiple countries. Something else might be a little bit more local. So the ideas are endless, but this would not be a top-down approach. This would definitely be in keeping with what we have already been doing, which is listening to the voices of women and girls. And
I think that's one of the reasons why everyone loves the projects that the Grant Selection Committee and Together Women Rise and all of you have supported. In respect for everyone's time, we're past the 9 o'clock hour. Thank you so much, Veena. You can see there's a lot of interest and excitement in this. And we are going to continue to talk about this regularly, so it may take us a while to announce the first partners, but we're going to try to talk with people on a regular basis, share more about, well, what does it mean, participatory grant making, and where is transformation taking place in the world, and where might we invest our money. We want to have an ongoing discussion with everyone about this as we move forward. So hopefully we whet everybody's interest and appetite and for learning more about this together as the year goes on. And of course, I have to remind everyone that we absolutely depend on your support and your donations. We encourage you to sign up for monthly giving so that you are supporting women and girls all year round. And we're happy to help you do that. It's very easy and simple. So thank you for supporting this work. Upcoming events, we have a number of different ways that you can get involved. Our book club is getting going again. January 24th will be the next event. The book is The Pearl That Broke Its Shell. It's set in Afghanistan. And we will have the author, Nadia Hashimi, will be there on the 24th to talk more. She has written a lot of books on Afghanistan culture and for both adults and youth, and we're excited to have her. And I just found out that our next book club event on March 29th will also have Edwidge Dandakat, the author of Breath, Eyes, and Memory, a book that takes place in Haiti and talks about women in Haiti. So kudos to our wonderful book club volunteers who have been securing these authors, free of charge, by the way, who come and talk to our wonderful community. If you have ever been interested or would like to learn more about our advocacy efforts and specifically our partnership with Results, there's going to be an orientation. So anybody can come, even if you know absolutely nothing and you're just starting from scratch. It will be January 27th. And at 8:30 in the evening, and you can learn more about that program and how you might get involved and absolutely advocate to transform systems for women and girls. You can find all of our upcoming events on our website. Go to the Join Us tab and click on there, and you'll see right at the top upcoming events, as well as recordings of past events. So if this was a great event program that you'd like to share with your chapter members or your family and friends, you can find the recording there. It usually takes us a day or so to get that up on the website, but by early next week, it'll be there. And if you just want to show Vina's presentation, because members have some questions about transformation partnerships, it's real easy to just, fast forward through to that. But, the whole program was excellent. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Vina. And thank all of you for joining us. We'll see you next month on first Thursday in February. I think it's the 3rd. And we are going to have a speaker from our featured grantee once again. And we, every month now, since we are going to have sort of a special feature as well, and it might be about the transformation partnerships. It might be talking about some of our chapters and how unique and wonderful they are. So please check out our upcoming events and join us in the future. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Margie,